Dear students, any group has its own structure as well as its own goals. One of the most striking and universal facts about groups is that they almost always have a leader. Even among birds and animals, there are group leaders. When food is placed in a small pile before the hungry chicken, one bird will feed actively and prevent others from getting near the pile or even to peck at the scattered grain. The other birds show fear and go away. If the aggressive bird is removed by the experimenter, another bird takes her place and dominates. Thus, the group is seen to be composed of individuals which form a hierarchy of precedence. The dominant bird assumes control of food, water, roosting places, choice of mates, etc. Similar behavior can be observed in mammals also. The dominant male monkey excludes the subordinates from breeding. There is also the group territorial system, which needs the aggressive and powerful male to protect the territory. Thus, there is not only hierarchical organization within the group, but also definite recognition of in-group members and antagonism to out-group individuals. In the same manner, it can be observed that one child becomes the leader in a group of 6 or 8-year-old children. There is a leader in each teenage group. There are also leaders in a work gang. Thus, despite the fact that the purposes, structure, and membership of these groups vary considerably, each group has a leader. Leadership appears to be the ubiquitous feature of group life and is probably a necessary condition for an assemblage of individuals to function as a group. 3 factors perceived by members. When members of a small group are asked to rate each other on leadership, they generally seem to take 3 factors into account: dominance, likability, and task success. They pick up a person who is moderately powerful in the group. He or she must be active physically and verbally. He or she must possess abilities and resources that enable him to influence others and to give or deny opportunities, rewards, or punishments. He or she must also be likable. The person chosen to be a leader must be one whom the members could like and admire. He or she must be one who gives them opportunities and rewards. However, even a combination of dominance and likability is not normally enough for leadership position. He or she must also be capable of bringing success to their endeavors. Thus, task success is necessary to make him or her acceptable as a leader so that he or she can make rewards available. The central attribute of leadership influences the leader is generally the person in the group who has the greatest influence on the activities and beliefs of the members. He or she is the one who initiates action, makes decisions, and gives orders to the members as to what they should do. He or she is also the person who settles disputes between the members. He or she serves as an inspiration to the members of the group and is in the forefront of any activity undertaken by the group. The emergence of leaders. Why do particular persons become leaders? There are 2 aspects to the problem. What situations enable a person to become a leader? And what kind of a person becomes a leader? One way of becoming a leader is by being appointed by someone outside the group. All the persons in positions of authority in the administrative services of the government, industrial concerns, business concerns, banks, military units, etc. are all appointed leaders. The appointing authority has to adopt some formal procedure. Another way of becoming a leader is by election. The members of the group elect their own leader. This involves a formal procedure. It is the choice of the majority. Thus, both the appointed leader and the elected leader come to occupy their positions of leadership on the basis of some formal procedures. There is yet another way in which persons become leaders. This involves informal procedures like the sociometric choice, as in the case of what we may call the social leaders or opinion leaders. They are neither appointed leaders nor are they elected leaders. The appointed leaders as well as the ejected leaders may adopt either a democratic style of functioning or the autocratic style of functioning. The democratic leader is one whose basic techniques are persuasion, conciliation, and tolerance. He or she is not preoccupied with the problem of disciplining the members of the group. He or she trusts the good sense of people and believes that with proper guidance they can be made to work for their goals. He or she relies on facts and on logical arguments since he or she has faith in the intelligence of the people. He or she does not seek to influence them through propaganda. In contrast, the authoritarian leader is characterized by dominance and aggressiveness. He or she believes in the value of discipline, forcefulness, and defense to authority. He or she likes to display the external symbols of status and power. Since he or she does not have a high opinion of the intelligence and abilities of the masses, he or she uses many techniques of propaganda to make them believe and do what he or she wants them to believe and do. He or she depends more on power and punishment than on persuasion. Sometimes the leader may be ascribed by the people a mystical power. He or she is the charismatic leader. He or she is able to inspire people to blind devotion. He or she can move the masses with great ease. The charismatic leader may be authoritarian like Hitler and Stalin, or he or she may be a democratic leader like Mahatma Gandhi. Charisma is the quality attributed to the leader because of the possession of some transcendent power. He or she is assumed to have some divine grace which enables him to achieve great feats. Charismatic quality is attributed to persons who establish ascendancy over other human beings by their commanding forcefulness or by an exemplary inner state. Such a leader seeks to break the traditional social structures. He or she is the creator of a new social order. As a matter of fact, when the members of the group are impressed by the inadequacy of the prevailing institutional systems and the inadequacy of the existing leaders, they are on the lookout for persons with new vision and new dynamism and are ready to welcome the charismatic leader. Any leader, whether elected or appointed to be effective, must have influence over the members of the group or the general public. Thus, one definition of leader is that he or she is a member of the group who can influence the activities of the group. This implies that leadership is a quantitative variable. In fact, in a democracy, any citizen can stand for election and get himself elected as a member of the municipal corporation or of the state or central legislature. A member of the group can become a leader if he or she can influence the other members of the group. This influence depends on the attitude of the members towards him. If they change their attitude, his influence may decrease. In political as well as in administrative life, one can see persons who were holding powerful positions in the group become ordinary members of the group when they give up their positions. They have hardly any influence whatever. Thus, the influence in a group tends to be concerned in one or few persons. Influence is not spread evenly among all the members. As the group becomes larger and as the goals of the group become multifarious, a hierarchy of leadership develops. At the top will be the primary leaders, then there will be second level and third level leaders, and at the lowest positions in the hierarchy will be the followers. This hierarchy pattern can be seen in many groups and organizations. The emergence of leaders is particularly demanded when the group is facing some internal or external threat. Before concluding this section, let us give a brief description of those people who are designated as opinion leaders. In every group, rural or urban, there are some persons whose opinion with respect to certain matters are respected by the members of the group. When they have some problem with respect to agriculture or litigation or business affairs, etc., they go to such persons to get their advice. The existence of such leaders was recognized when studies were made with respect to the voting behavior. The opinion leaders generally come from the same social and economic status. Generally, they are intimately associated with the members of the group, but they are persons with wider knowledge of the affairs. They listen to the radio broadcasts, read magazines, etc., and thus possess greater knowledge about the problems concerned. Studies show that their words have greater influence on the members of the group than the lectures delivered by the political leaders in their election campaigns or by the newspaper articles, etc. Studies in India have shown that these opinion leaders are quite influential in the adoption of family planning programs or the adoption of hybrid seeds, insecticides, etc. The functions of the leaders. The leader has manifold functions to perform. The most obvious function of the leader is to coordinate the activities of the various members. The leader is an executive. In this capacity, he or she assigns work to the second, third, and other level leaders. Sometimes, he or she may not be willing to delegate responsibility to the other members. This may prevent the development of task responsibility in the members and may affect their involvement in the work of the group. Another function of the leader is to plan and decide the ways and means by which the group can attain its goals. This implies that the leader must help the group to clearly define its goals and its policies. The leader must also be an expert. He or she must have the necessary information and the skills to help the members. Since there is a high degree of specialization, he or she may not have all the information and skills, so he or she must have technical advisors. Yet another function is to be the representative of the group in its external relations. He or she will also be the gatekeeper, since all outgoing as well as incoming communications will be channeled through him. He or she functions as the controller of in-group relations. He or she has the powers to apply reward and punishments to the members. This enables him to exercise control over the group members. He or she has control over who occupies the sub-leader positions. This will enable him to move individuals up or down in the status hierarchy in the group. He or she can take all kinds of disciplinary action against the erring members. When there is conflict within the group, it is his duty to be the arbitrator. He or she may have to act both as judge and as a conciliator. He or she is in the position to promote or reduce factionalism in the group. He or she may become the father figure. He or she is the ideal and the object for identification and for all positive feelings. But by the same token, he or she may be the target for the aggressiveness of the frustrated and disillusioned members and factions. If the group is successful, the leader is praised. But if it is unsuccessful, the leader will be blamed. The personality characteristics of leaders. It is not possible to assume certain personality traits will always characterize leaders, since the emergence of the leader depends on the nature of the tasks and on the composition of the followers. However, it is possible on the basis of empirical studies to describe certain traits that are generally characteristic of effective leaders. In general, leaders are found to be more intelligent than their followers. Mann, in his review of studies carried out from 1930 to 1957, found that leaders tend somewhat consistently to be better adjusted, more dominant, more extroverted, more masculine, less conservative, and to have greater interpersonal sensitivity than the other members of the group. However, it is possible that the individuals develop these traits in their role as leaders. The leader role demands dominance, extraversion, interpersonal sensitivity, etc. It is possible that these traits are strengthened in him so as to enable him to cope up with the problems that arise when he is leading a group. Berkowitz conducted an interesting study. On the basis of a battery of personality tests, he selected 10 college students who had high ascendant personalities, 10 who had low ascendant personalities, and 20 who had moderately ascendant personalities. He constituted a number of 4-person groups, each consisting of 1 high, 1 low, and 2 moderately ascendant persons. In half the groups, the high ascendant persons, and in the other half, the low ascendant persons were assigned the central position from which they could directly communicate with the other 3 persons. It was found that the low ascendant persons in the central position came to behave like the high ascendant persons. Confirming the statement, the office makes the man. There is another controversy whether leadership is a general trait or a specific trait. According to one opinion, the person who is a leader in one situation will be a leader in all other situations. The other view holds that leadership is specific to the task and to the group, so that with any change in the task or the group, leadership will change. Several studies have demonstrated that there exist sets of tasks in which leadership is relatively constant. It is found that there are 2 kinds of leadership: intellectual leadership and mechanical assembly leadership. Bass summarized the results obtained in leaderless group discussion situation. The correlations of performance during the test situation with various appraisals of leadership performance in real-life situations strongly support the existence of some generality and transferability of leadership behavior. Thus, there appears to be reasonable evidence to assume that leadership is something general, though certain members consistently tend to assume the leadership of groups working on intellectual tasks, and certain other members tend to consistently lead the same groups when they are assigned mechanical tasks. Fiedler's contingency model of leadership effectiveness. Fiedler tried to identify the characteristics that distinguish the effective leader from other leaders. The general theoretical model assumes that the type of leader that will be most effective depends upon the favorability of the situation to the leader, which in turn depends on the effective leader-group relations, task structure, and the leader's position power. He used measures of interpersonal perception. He asked the subject to think of all the people with whom he had ever worked and describe the person whom he considers to be the most preferred co-worker and the person he considers to be the least preferred co-worker. He found that leaders with certain scores behaved in complaint, non-directive, and generally relaxed manner, while those with certain other scores were more demanding, controlling, and managing in their interaction with the group. The data further revealed that leaders in powerful positions behaved differently from those in less powerful positions. This complex set of data led him to develop the contingency model. This model requires the description of task situations, dimensions, and the specification of the relation between these dimensions and leadership effectiveness. With respect to task situations, three components were postulated as being critical: the leader's effective relations with group members, the structure of group task, and the power provided by his position. It was assumed that the leader who is liked and respected can obtain the compliance of the group members without exercising power and can act more decisively and with more confidence than the leader who is disliked or rejected by the group. As regards the task structure, it may be highly structured in the sense that the goal is clearly specified and the procedures for goal attainment are unambiguous. If the task is highly unstructured and the goal is unclear, there may be many paths to the goal. The theory assumes that the more structured the task, the more favorable the situation to the leader. The power position of the leader refers to the leader's control over rewards and sanctions, his authority over the group members, and the degree to which he is supported by the organization of which the group is a part. This was the least important determinant of favorability. Fiedler assumed that the given group situation can be located along a favorability continuum ranging from that which is highly favorable to the leader to that which is highly unfavorable to the leader. The most favorable situation concerns the effective leader-member relation. Even if the task is structured and the power position is strong, if the effective leader-member relation is poor, it will be unfavorable to the leader. With respect to leadership style and favorability, Fiedler found that the managing, controlling, and task-oriented leaders are more effective when the group task situation is either very favorable or very unfavorable for the leader. The permissive, considerate, relationship-oriented leaders are more effective when the group task situation is of intermediate favorability. Thus, when the leader has power, is on good terms with the members of the group, and the task is clearly structured, the group is ready to be directed and is willing to be told what to do. When the situation is highly unfavorable, permissive leadership may lead to the disintegration of the group. In moderately favorable situation, permissive, considerate, and relation-oriented leadership will be successful. Thus, the model specifies the conditions under which different leadership behaviors may be expected to be effective. It has shown the relation between the personal attributes of the leader and the situational factors. Conclusion. In every group, different tasks are ascribed to the different members, and all the members of the group do not possess equal ability and skill for performing every task. The various tasks are distributed among them according to individual ability. Their respective status also suffers a difference along with the allocation of different tasks to different individuals. If you see a group of children playing, you will discover among them a leader while the others are his followers. Sometimes there are several leaders within the same group, of whom one formulates the plan of campaign while the other puts it into the action. The rest of the gang perform executive duties and assist the leader. It need hardly be made clear that the person who makes the plans must be intelligent. The boy who leads its active implementation must be the most powerful from the point of view of physical strength. One supplies the brain and the another brawn. Comparable to the group of boys, one finds many groups of human individuals in human society and in these groups, some are leaders while the rest of the group is composed of followers. In the Indian villages, there are leaders in different castes. In addition to them, there are some leaders who lead the entire village. From the viewpoints of social psychology and sociology, the scientific study of the phenomenon of leadership is very important and has much to recommend it because in this democratic age, progress is directly proportionate to the efficiency and capability of the leader. To be truthful, the first problem that stares any nation in its face is how to create capable leaders. From the above description, it is evident that there are many aspects of leadership. All these aspects should be studied individually and in detail in a scientific manner.